Okay, here we go. So, welcome everybody to this the first final exam preparation for the YouTube video. And this is all for all of you grade 12s out there who are beginning exams or final exams in about a month's time. So today's stream is going to be focusing a bit on functions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through these questions, and I'm also going to allow you to say something in the chat if you have any questions, and I'm also going to give you some time to work through the questions. So I'm just going to test out my chat now. Okay, saying welcome to revision and exam prep. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to begin, and here is what we have. This is from the 2008 November DBE question. And what I would recommend is highlighting the key questions or the key information in the question. So we've got the diagram that represents the graph of f of x is equal to a all over x minus p plus q. And so from our theory, what we should know is that this is the equation of a hyperbola. And they say T53 is a point on F. You can see that they've given us the point T53. Now, if we remember what the A value will tell us, is the A value will tell us which quadrants these graphs are in. Now, given that this is in quadrant 1, remember this is quadrant 2 and this is quadrant 3. So these are in quadrants 1 and 3. I'm expecting my A value to be positive. Remember that the P value is related to the vertical asymptote, and the Q value is related to the horizontal asymptote. And if you look at what they're asking in the first question, is they're asking you to determine the values of A, P, and Q, which is going to be relatively simple because we have the asymptotes and we have a point. So I'm going to give you some time to work through this, and I'm going to put the stopwatch in such that you can work through this sort of at your own time. You'll notice that this is a 4-mark question, so I'm going to give you roughly around 3 minutes to work through 4.1, and then I will take you through it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm also going to stream some beats for you so you can work under a nice sort of relaxed condition. Right, so you'll notice I gave you a little bit of extra time there, but let's have a look and see how we would then answer this. Now, remember we said that the p-value is the vertical asymptote, and this vertical asymptote, well, what is the equation of this vertical asymptote? The equation of this line is x is equal to 4, which in this case means that my p-value is 4. And if I looked at the equation of this horizontal line passing through the point y, or passing to 2, well, the equation of this line would then be y is equal to 2. Okay, so, well, what we have is, so for 4.1, we know that we can say f of x is equal to some value a, which I'm expecting to be positive, all over x minus 4, because that's my horizontal asymptote, right? Minus the horizontal asymptote, sorry, the vertical asymptote, my apologies, plus the horizontal asymptote, which is 2. And this, we can call it step number 1. Step number 1. Now, once we have this, the next thing we've got to do is we've got to substitute the point that we have. So we're then going to substitute the points t, 5, and 3. And so remember, this corresponds to x, and that corresponds to y. So where I see f of x, which is the same as y, I'm going to say 3 is equal to the a value, which I don't know, and all over 5 minus 4, which is 1, plus 2. And of course, then I need to solve for a. And I can do that by taking this 2 across. A over 1 is just going to be a, and so therefore I get a is equal to 1. And from the earlier part, we know that, well, if you want to tabulate it, that p is equal to, my p-value was 4, and my q-value was 2. And so this gives me the parameters of this hyperbola fully. Time to show you the model, but you can see p is equal to 4, q is equal to 2. I substitute in, and I get a is equal to 1. And this is all I have. And these are my answers, and they're correct. So this was for 4 marks. And so now, what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to check if there are any questions. Nothing so far. And then they say if the graph is reflected across the line y having y is equal to minus x plus c, the new graph coincides with the graph of y is equal to f of x. Determine the value of c. Okay, so if the graph of f is reflected across the line having the equation y is equal to minus x plus c, the new graph coincides with the graph y is equal to fx. So what they're saying is if I flip it, it will coincide, or it will still be the same graph. Then they say determine the value of c in this case. So this is related to the lines of symmetry. Okay, and I want you to think about the lines of symmetry. Remember, when you need to work out the lines of symmetry, there are essentially 2 lines of symmetry, and both of them pass through the one line. Okay, so that's the positive line of symmetry. So that's some y value is x plus c. And then there is another one that goes this way. And so remember, this is just a rough drawing, but this corresponds to y is equal to some value negative x plus c. And you'll notice that they have a point of intersection, which is the point of intersection of the asymptotes. So that is my clue to you. You can see it's a 3-mark question, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to have a go, and then we will discuss. Alright, so again, I gave you a little bit more time, but what we're going to do is we're going to erase this because we don't need it anymore. Okay, now the first thing that we need to first determine is what is the point of intersection. And so you'll notice, let's just write down the point of intersection. So we know that the x value is x is equal to 4, and the y value is y is equal to 2. So we know that this point of intersection, I'm going to call it the poi, is 4 and 2. And we also know that if you look at what we were given here, we're working with the straight line or the axis of symmetry that has a negative gradient, which is the red line. So the red line has a negative gradient. You can see that. And so the question is, how are we going to work out the c value? Well, if we start, we can say that y is equal to minus x plus some c value. And do we have a point that runs on this red line? Yes, we do. We have the point of intersection, which is 4 and 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute 4 and 2 where we see x and y. And so we can say 2 is equal to minus 4 plus c. Therefore, c must be equal to 6. And right, so they just asked us to determine the value of c, and you can see that c is 6. Okay, and you'll notice that there's two ways you could have done it. You could have done it like this, or you could have just done a translation. For me, just knowing this law about the axis of symmetry is probably the best way to do it, and this is how you would do question number 4. And we are done. Okay, so now we are moving on to the next question. Okay, we've got h of x is equal to 4 to the power of x. So we can see that this is an exponential. And then f of x is equal to 2 into x minus 1 squared minus 8. And we should know that this is a parabola in the turning point form. Okay, because remember, the parabola in the turning point form is a into x minus p squared minus q, or plus q actually. So and I'm just going to show you the formula for it, and let's just bring it out here. There we go. Well, you can see that this is an a into x minus p squared plus q. That's the turning point form. They say sketch the graphs of h and f on the diagram sheet provided. Indicate all, so let's write that down. Indicate all intercepts and axes with the turning points. All right, so they would have given you this graph paper here, and they would have expected you to do this. Now, obviously, we'd like to give you some time to practice, so we're going to do that. Same story. In this case, you'll notice it's an 8-mark question, but I don't think you would need 8 marks, so we will give you, I don't think you would need 8 minutes, so I will give you 5 minutes, and let's see how you go along.
Watch yoga videos ad-free and practice uninterrupted. Try using Premium on us.
Right, so let's have a look at this question. Now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to highlight, well, we're going to start with the parabola. Now remember, the reason why this is 8 marks is because we have to indicate all of the intercepts with the axes and any turning points, and we have to show how we got them. That is why it's 8 marks, which is great actually. So I'm going to start with this f of x, right? Now, we know that f of x is equal to 2 into x minus 1 squared minus 8. Now, of course, this gives me the turning point, right? Because I know that my turning point, because this is in the turning point form, the turning point is going to be 1 and negative 8. That's the first thing. This 2a value tells me that this is going to be a happy face, because it's greater than 0. Now, from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So to find my x-intercept, what do? I let y equal to 0. Now what that means is I let this f of x equal to 0, so that I say 0 is equal to 2 into x minus 1 squared minus 8. And of course, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, there's a few ways I could do this. I'm going to take this 8 over, so I then get 8 is equal to 2 into x minus 1 squared. Then I can divide both sides by 2, and then I get 4 is equal to x minus 1 squared. I then take the square root, and remember, if I take the square root of any number, I get 2 roots. So the square root of 4 is plus and minus 2, and is equal to x minus 1. And then from there, what I can say is that if I take the minus 1 across, that my values for x become plus 2 plus 1, so x is equal to 3, or minus 2 plus 1, so minus 2 plus 1 is minus 1. Okay, that's the x-intercept. And so now I need to work out the y-intercept. Now, how do I work out the y-intercept? I let x equal to 0. Okay, now if I do that, what I do is I just say, in this case, y is equal to 2 into 0 minus 1 squared minus 8. So 0 minus 1 is minus 1, squared is 1, times 2 is 2, and 2 minus 8 is negative 6. Okay, so now you'll notice that I've got the x-intercepts, I've got the turning points, and I've got the y-intercept. And I'm going to show it to you on the graph, but you can see, well, here are my roots meaning the x-intercepts. Here's my y-intercept, and here's my turning point, and that's all you need to draw the graph. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is, well, for this exponential graph, the only thing that I need to do is I'm just going to do a table of values. Okay, so for the next part, all I'm going to do is my table of values. So I'm going to say, okay, what are the values of x, and what is the values for h of x, and I'm going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, and I'm going to plug in the values. So for instance, 4 raised to the power -2 is 1 all over 4 squared, so that's 1 over 16. This would be 1 over 4. This would be 1. This would be 4. And that would be 16. And then I would, well, you'll notice that I can start to do my exponential graph here. Here we go. H. You'll notice that it's going through the point 1. That's the y-intercept, and it's getting really big, really fast. And that is the answer for number 5.1. And then they say for 5.2, without any further clarifications or calculations, sketch the graph of y is equal to log 4x is equal to g of x on the same set of axes. Now, remember, this is related to functions and inverses. Have a think about it. And then they say the graph of f is shifted 2 units to the left. Write down the equation of the new graph. Okay, so you're going to have a go at that. And then show algebraically that h of x half is 2h of x. So 2 marks, 4 marks, and 3 marks, which is 7 marks in total. So I'll give you 5 minutes and begin. And let's start the music. Okay, let's have a go. Right, so we have this. Now, well, let's start with, we don't need this anymore. Let's remove it for now. So we've drawn our graph. Okay, they say without any further calculations, that's the key. Sketch the graph of y is equal to log 4, x is equal to g of x on the same set of axes. Now, what we need to know is that actually this graph, y is equal to log 4x, is the inverse of this graph here, right? I hope you saw that. Even if you didn't, well, I hope you see it and understand it now. Now remember that the inverse, what do we do with the inverse? X becomes y and y becomes x. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this the y's, and then these are going to be the x's. So that means for x is equal to 1 over 16, you'll get minus 1 over 2. For x is equal to quarter, you get minus 1, etc., etc. And that is how you will draw the inverse function. And you'll notice how this 0.01 corresponds to the 0.10, etc., etc. So that's how you do it. You'll also notice that this point here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 1 corresponds to the points 1 and 4. Okay, so that's how it changes up. Okay, so let's just move to the next part of the question. But what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm just going to give you a little bit more time to maybe try the other questions, and then we will go. Right, so here we go. The graph is shifted, the graph of f is shifted 2 units to the left, right on the equation of the new graph. Now remember, when it's shifted 2 units to the left, what we're going to be working out is we're going to work out f at x. Now, if it's going to the left, we add, and we work out f at x plus 2. So what that means is where I see x, I replace it with x plus 2. So then this becomes 2 into x plus 2 minus 1 squared minus 8. And of course that then becomes 2 into x plus 2 minus 1. So that becomes plus 1 squared minus 8. And that is my answer for the next part of the question. Right, so you can see that it becomes 2 into x plus 1 squared minus 8. So that's nice and easy. And the next, so we're going to look at it now. Right, 5.4. This was 5.3. 5.4. Okay, show algebraically. We don't need this anymore. Let's remove it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time to work through this, like a minute, because you've had quite a bit of time. Right, so let's start by working out h at x plus a half, right? H at ax plus a half means where I have x, replace it with x plus a half. So that becomes 4 into x plus a half, like so. Now remember, I can then use, well, this can be written as 2 into 2 into raised to the power x plus a half. And of course, if I distribute this, this then becomes 2 to the power 2x plus 1. Okay. Now, let's see what 2h of x is. 2 times h of x is the same as 2 times 4 to the power of x, right? And remember, this can be written as 2 times 2 raised to the power 2 raised to the power x, which can be written as 2 times 2 to the power 2x. And of course, if I use my exponential laws, it becomes 2 to the power 2x plus 1. Okay, so that comes to the end of revision for today. So I'm going to stop streaming and hopefully we get more people next time. But thank you, good luck for the exams, and please follow us on our social media channels and where we will update you on the rest of the stuff that we will be planning to do. Have a great evening. Thank you and goodbye.